Let's turn the clock back to 2016. At that time, I was still in elementary school, still thinking I was hot shit for having a YouTube channel, which I didn't even upload to. My friends and I played Roblox basically every day. I was having fun with my Xbox 360. Life was really good. And during summer 2016, my family and I went on a big vacation to New York because that's the tradition we used to have before the virus. And my father decided to get me and my older brother something to occupy our time while we were in the car's backseat. My brother got a new 3DS XL, and I got a Nintendo 2DS. It's been 5 years. I still have it. Let's look into it. StreetPass Mii Plaza is an online experience revolving around interaction. As indicated by the title, it uses the StreetPass feature. As your 3DS sleeps, you meet new people at your gate while also exchanging some information. It visualizes the sheer amount of people living nearby you that have a 3DS in an impactful way. You can even see where they are on the map, reinforcing this game's foundation, connectivity. But there's so much more than that. You can play games too, which further use the StreetPass features. One of those games is Find Me, a mixture of fantasy and connecting to people via StreetPass. You can play with whoever's at the gate once, or you can recruit new heroes to progress and kill enemies. Almost every game in StreetPass Mii Plaza uses this format of collecting Miis to use in game to basically win however you need. That gives them an enticing exterior, but they also have surprisingly in-depth mechanics. If you ask the bunny, they can tell you all the things you can do in those games. Obviously, you'll have to pay after you are told, but it is pretty cool. If you want this excellent experience to be further enhanced, you can even get some more features like these. What I find to be interesting about StreetPass Mii Plaza isn't the game, but the feeling of seeing a small little plaza with some quaint bubbly music playing, growing to this large bustling park with this booming theme alluding to each new person bringing their own instrument to play. It really creates this sense of community with these strangers you haven't seen. It's really cool. Something I wish Mii Plaza had was direct connection to SwapNote, which was an application where you can send little notes to people over StreetPass. I personally think that Mii Plaza could have been an amazing way to make new friends through the Nintendo 3DS. All you really can do when people you don't know are in your plaza is look at their Mii and import it into the 3DS Mii Maker. God knows I would love to have met some of the people I met through StreetPass, especially during that vacation. As a pack-in title with some games available to you to begin with, StreetPass Mii Plaza is pretty alright. I love the sense of community it creates with these people you might not ever meet. And while I would have loved a message sending system to people I have in my plaza, for a pack-in title it's really something worthwhile. How they're able to make such a boring experience like shopping for games interesting, I will never understand. But the Nintendo eShop is able to give us such a good vibe for something as simplistic as shopping. In essence, the eShop has an amazing sense of charm and personality, and this works in its favor. Every time you shop, it's a fun experience. When you enter, it's like you're entering a small shopping mall, and each game or category is a small shop in that mall. When you go to redeem codes, re-download software, or change the settings, the music changes to a more chill vibe, kind of signifying going to the back of the shop with the manager, like he's not able to help you in the front end, has some cool stuff to show you over there. I personally believe that the best way to get people to interact with your shop, or interact with anything you create, is to make them feel at home, and eShop ticks that box for me. In fact, most Nintendo shops fulfill that need. Except the Switch, but we don't talk about that one. Buying the games is a charming experience as well. Not only are the blocks of the games carried over in a rack-like fixture, the games when you first get them are in little presents which you have to open before your software is put onto the home screen. The 3DS eShop was really good at capturing that feeling of going to your local game store and picking something else, but like in digital form. The 3DS eShop is so full of charm. It has an overwhelming amount of charm, and it saddens me that this eShop and the Wii U eShop were the last online Nintendo shops to have such a great personality. If you're lacking in music to listen to, by the way, the 3DS eShop has got some good ones. I'm playing one right now, all centering around the theme of a chill shopping session for games. If there's something you really need to know about me, is that I cannot, under any goddamn circumstance, finish a role-playing game from start to finish. There has only been one RPG that has gotten that treatment from me, and that is Yokai Watch. Released on July 11, 2013, Yokai Watch was a strange breed of role-playing game, one that appealed to an 11-year-old meta. Not fully sure why that game captivated me back then, but all I know is that as a 16-year-old I can understand why I stayed with the game. While Yokai Watch lacks in non-repetitive gameplay, it completely makes up with the gameplay and its charm. Yokai Watch structures itself as the archetypal RPG, with bosses to defeat, side quests to check off, all the stuff you expect. The way they changed up these archetypes is through a battle system, which is completely different from the normal turn-based fight system that you might be used to with other role-playing games. Instead of choosing the attacks for each character, you spin a wheel and your party will do attacks completely on their own. You know, if they choose to do so. One yokai could loaf around, basically wasting valuable time that the yokai could be using to attack. In my opinion, this mechanic, while a tiny bit annoying, is integral to keeping the player on their toes. It forces you to reconsider what trio of yokai you put out there on the battlefield, and which ones you put to the back so you can heal them and purify them if possible. During battle, your yokai can do what's called a Ultimate, which is the equivalent of a Final Smash if you need something to jump off of. It needs to be charged, however, which incentivizes not just spamming one specific Ultimate at the boss and then winning. Basically, Yokai Watch really incentivizes you to use different yokai to win every fight you get into, and I am all for it, especially the way they do it with the wheel. The entire vibe of Yokai Watch is quite charming. There's not really a sense of the spooky in here, which you would expect from a game about Japanese yokai. In fact, the designs of every yokai in Yokai Watch are much more welcoming, less about alienating the probably American player. They're less presented as spooky spirits that do actual damage to you and your friends, and are mostly presented as funny spirits that just want friends because they're lonely and stuff. The way that yokai present themselves in battle, the way the protagonist walks around the game world, the way that characters talk. Yokai are human. It all comes back to the idea of, what if we make the supernatural cute and simplistic? And for the most part it works. Characters don't just feel like hollow vessels to spout exposition from, they feel like they've been living there long before you downloaded the game. Yokai especially. However, Yokai Watch has a problem with the story missions. At a few points in the story, you need a certain watch rank before you can go and do them, which wouldn't be that big of a problem if the game told you that a certain watch rank is needed before you get over there. But they don't always do that, and it's really annoying. Because of this, you'll have to spend an entire time backtracking and grinding just to go further in the story, and even after you get the watch rank needed, it doesn't really feel like a big accomplishment, since you have to do it for the story progression, not for the fun of it. To an 11-year-old meta, it's nothing too bad, but to a 16-year-old meta who knows what he's talking about, it's constantly infuriating. You know what's even more infuriating? The fact that the game thinks it has time for small little cutscenes where a character asks you to do something that takes about 5 minutes. Here's a cool little example. In Chapter 9, The Extreme Dare, your goal is to free your friends from a yokai's ensspiriting. What I find personally annoying about this is that you'll get into a cutscene with one of the yokai, they'll tell you what you need, you'll be locked from moving for a little bit, then you'll go do the thing they need, then they'll do another cutscene to thank you, then you'll go do something else. So hey game designers, if you ever wanted to know how to break the flow of gameplay and break a player's immersion, this is it. This is your blueprint for breaking immersion if you want it. It's a really annoying part of Yokai Watch that's basically a part of every story mission in the game. These two parts of the game are an extreme turnoff to experienced gamers or people who have played an RPG before, and I hope to God that these problems are completely eradicated in Yokai Watch 2 and 3. But all in all, Yokai Watch is a good entry-level RPG for people who don't know much about them, but for people who know a lot about RPGs or for people who are good with games, it's basically a little brother. Annoying at points, but you can't help but love its charm and wit.
Brain age, concentration training.
In an effort to get me and my brother to learn while playing on our 3DSs, my father bought a copy of Brain Age Concentration Training. He expected us to play it so that we could learn from it, and 11-year-old Meta absolutely hated the idea. He was too busy playing Mario Kart 7 and Yokai Watch to even give a shit. But honestly, my father's decision to buy Brain Age was a very good one, because Concentration Training is possibly one of my favorite games on the 3DS. At its core, concentration training is all about training the memory of a player, and to say it does this well would be an understatement. Each part of the game is designed to up the stats of your brain in something, specifically your working memory. But concentration training isn't just about strengthening your working memory, it's about speeding up your working memory, sharpening your brain in general, etc. The game encourages you all the time, even if you fail at something that might have seemed so simplistic to you once you finish the exercise. Speaking of those, they feel like the perfect balance between challenging and easy, and it helps that they'll go back to an easier level if you don't do that well in a level you're clearly struggling with. And to me, as someone who takes a while to understand concepts during learning, this is a very welcome addition, and it makes me determined to see it through, to come back day by day to become the very best I can be. But the game isn't just about strengthening your brain all day every day, it's also about the science behind that. After a successful session of a minigame, Kawashima will tell you a cool little tip about the brain, getting you to understand why these methods of learning work. The brain is a super complex thing, and the Brain Age franchise has been about breaking it down and making it easily digestible. And for me, it works perfectly. Something I find quite appealing about Brain Age Concentration Training is the presentation. It feels more like an institute for brain sciences than like a school, which fits in with Kawashima's job description and title. It puts the player at ease. School isn't something that, brings back happy memories for everyone, so putting the player in a calming space allows them to concentrate and focus much more easily, and that's very cool. It allows me personally to not think, oh god, I'm in school, aren't I? It makes me think more about what's on my screens. While concentration training isn't the very best that the Brain Age franchise has to offer, it's something that's allowed me to be less forgetful of the things in my life, and as someone who is pretty forgetful, that's something I've needed for a while. And concentration training satisfies that need. Now let me take you back to about 2019. I hadn't used my 3DS in ages. By this point, I was pining over the new Nintendo Switch, and I desperately wanted to ask for it. But since I had the 3DS already, I thought my parents would say no. So 14-year-old Meta thought, alright, we gotta work with what we got. But he didn't know what else he could do with it. Sure, he could play games on it, but he didn't have that many. He thought his 2DS had reached its limit. Two things changed that. One, my dad bought me Super Mario 3D Land for my birthday, so that was one more game to play. And two, I homebrewed my Wii. The world of Homebrew is an amazing place. Not only could I modify my system to do whatever I wanted, but I also emulate games on my systems without needing a virtual console. Or even better, I could play games made by the amazing Homebrew community. And if I didn't know what to do, or something felt unclear, bam, the community was always there, ready to help, ready to tell me what the problem might be. When I started homebrewing my Wii, I used the SD card on my 3DS for a while until I got a USB to use instead. But during that time, I asked myself a question. Wait, is there 3DS homebrew? And so I googled it, and it led me down a rabbit hole of 3DS homebrew, and honestly, it is amazing. The original games made by homebrew devs are few and far between, but when you find one, it's a pretty special experience. However, most of the community's efforts have been on porting games to the handheld, like Jackbox Games' Fibbage, Doki Doki Literature Club, and even a native port of Super Mario 64 running on a clean 60 FPS on new 3DS model like the one you see here. And in the emulation scene, you have the usual culprits: NES, SNES, Master System, Genesis, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, all that good stuff. Some homebrew devs have even made a program that puts whatever game you want into a virtual console game that's launchable through the home screen. And in 2020, the first Nintendo 64 emulator was finally released, allowing homebrew consumers to play games like Pokemon Stadium, Mario Kart 64, Paper Mario, and the first few Mario Party games on a 3DS. Of course, it's not perfect, and on old 3DS systems it struggles quite a bit, but at the time of its original release, it was astounding to even see a thing that many in the homebrew community never felt would actually happen. And the game mods, dude, holy hell, they did things I never imagined would ever happen to a game at all. I've seen it a lot, but the only one I've actually played is CGTP7, an expansion of Mario Kart 7, which adds new characters and new tracks to the game. And while some of those new tracks don't really work that well with the modern gameplay of Mario Kart 7, like this one I'm showing up on screen right now, some of the other ones, like the tracks from Crash Team Racing, feel as if Nintendo licensed those IPs and shoved them into the finished product. It's astounding how perfectly those tracks fit in. Basically what I'm saying is that you should really homebrew your 3DS if you still have one. And 3ds.hacks.guide is going to be your best friend when it comes to this stuff. Stay far away from video tutorials. I'm not sure how, but my own 2DS, through all my hacking, dropping, and hours upon hours of playing, hasn't even become the slightest bit boring. To a 16-year-old meta, this thing means a lot. And that's the magic of a Nintendo console, because even though the 3DS was discontinued, people are still talking about it. I mean, you just watched a video of me talking about this thing for a while, and odds are, you or one of your friends has a 3DS lying around. The memories that this thing has brought me have been some of my all-time favorites. They were memories with my family, which is why those memories stuck around for so long. I don't think I'll ever put my 2DS down, because with its great library and the memories I have with it, I don't think I can. Basically what I'm saying is, hey, you should friend me on Nintendo 3DS. My friend code is 4356